I'm going to show you a clip of cable news being stupid. But before I do, I want you to understand something. The people you see up on cable news were put up there for a reason. They're there to entertain. You can entertain and educate at the same time, but really, the way to think about these cable news shows is they're no different than Jimmy Fallon, or Seth Meyers, or something on Comedy Central. Each hour is its own show. They come in each day, they think about what the show's going to be, and then they book guests around what that show idea is. And there's two types of guests. There's paid contributors that are on the bankroll of that media outlet. That means Fox News, MSNBC, CNN are cutting them a check. And part of that deal is, hey, when we give you that call, you pick up that phone, you bring your butt right over to the camera, and we get to talk to you about whatever is trending that day. Those are paid contributors. They're like paid, they're like calling the witness at the criminal trial. When you bring in the expert doctor or the expert biologist, and the defense attorney stands there and says, so, doctor, psychologist, so-and-so, would you say? And somehow, that expert witness always seems to side with the lawyer that brought them in. That's what paid contributors are at the end of the day. Yeah, maybe they seem like they disagree with the host, but they're there to entertain. The host is either setting them up with softballs or deliberately provoking them in a way that's supposed to entertain you. The second type are just the guests they're finding last minute. It's the same as Jimmy Fallon, same as whatever late night talk show you want to think about. Those guests are there because they have a product. And when it comes to cable news, that product is usually a documentary or a book. It's usually a political book. And they're there to plug that product on some level. Now, it might not be as explicit as when Jimmy Fallon, David Letterman holds up that book. David Letterman, I'm dating myself. Stephen Colbert holds up that book and says, oh, thank you, John Green, for being here. Nonetheless, rest assured, they are there because a producer called them up and said, hey, I noticed you had a book out on Trump. I noticed you had a book out on Steve Bannon. I noticed you had a book out on Hillary Clinton. Why don't you come on the show as an expert, because we're talking about Donald Trump today. We're talking about Steve Bannon. We're talking about Emmanuel Macron today. And you wrote a book on contemporary French politics. And they come on because, hey, TV's great. So I want you to understand that before you see this clip. That in this clip, they bring on a doctor, CNN does, Brian Stelter, however you say his last name. Brian the bald-headed brings on a psychiatrist. And Brian Stelter sets him up. Watch the question he asks. He's basically pitching this doctor a question because he knows how the doctor's going to answer. They've discussed it beforehand a little bit. At least the producer has briefed Brian Stelter on what the doctor's angle is. And they brought on that doctor specifically for that angle. So it's contrived. The second part of this is the idea that listen how long that doctor talks before Brian Stelter cuts him off. Why is that? Any rational human being can realize this doctor is talking moronic. But Brian Stelter lets him continue because he's entertaining. So with that, let's watch the clip and let's realize how much of all the news you consume is phony. It's contrived. I'm going to be like, one day somebody's going to watch this and realize I'm like John the Baptist on contemporary mass media.
Diagnose.
Right, without saying I'm diagnosing because you've never met the man.
Exactly.
You can describe what you're seeing. So, Dr. Francis, I know you disagree with this view that Dr. Lee and a couple other dozen psychiatrists have published in this book. You say it's dangerous to be talking this way. Why?
Well, I think that medicalizing politics has three very dire consequences.
Okay, stop. We have been medicalizing politics since the dawn of our country. If you want to go all the way back to 1776, we've been medicalizing it at least since Roe v. Wade. And think about the AMA. The AMA are a political lobbyist entity. Their whole job is to politicize medicine. Let's continue.
I think that medicalizing politics has three very dire consequences. The first is that it stigmatizes the mentally ill. I've known thousands of patients. Almost all of them have been well-behaved, well-mannered, good people. Trump is none of these. Lumping the mentally ill with Trump is a terrible insult to the mentally ill, and they have enough problems and stigma as it is. The second issue is that calling Trump crazy hides the fact that we're crazy for having elected him, and even crazier for allowing his
So stop. All right, what we have here is a doctor saying it is unfair to the mentally ill to call Donald Trump mentally ill because it does a disservice to all the stable mentally ill people. One implied in that sentence is that Donald Trump is mentally ill. CNN's not saying it. Brian Stelter is not saying it. But they're allowing a guest to say it. Do I even like Donald Trump? No. But what's being said here is so monotonously stupid that the only way to interpret this piece of content is as entertainment. And it may not even be the entertainment that you ha-ha at. It's the entertainment of hate watching.
The second issue is that calling Trump crazy hides the fact that we're crazy for having elected him, and even crazier for allowing his crazy policies to persist. Trump is as destructive a person in this century as Hitler, Stalin, and Mao were in the last century. He may be responsible for many more million deaths than they were. He needs to be contained, but he needs...
We have a doctor brought on that just compared Donald Trump to being worse than Hitler or Stalin and may have killed many more people than Stalin and Hitler, who probably combined, those two alone, were responsible for around 100 million deaths. There are words being said by this man. But do they make sense? No. Do they inform the audience? No. Do they entertain? Sure. Yeah. They entertain enough for you to keep watching.
Trump is as destructive a person in this century as Hitler, Stalin, and Mao were in the last century. He may be responsible for many more million deaths than they were. He needs to be contained, but he needs to be contained by attacking his policies, not his person. It's crazy for us to be destroying the climate our children will live in. It's crazy to be giving tax cuts to the rich that will add trillions of dollars to the debt our children will have to pay. It's crazy to be destroying our democracy by claiming that the press and the courts are the enemy of the people. We have to face these policies, not Trump's person. Now, it's absolutely impossible. You can bet the House that the Congress, that Pence, that the cabinet will never, ever remove Trump on grounds of mental unfitness. That will never happen. Discussing the issue in psychological name-calling terms...
That's the clip. Think how long they let him speak for without cutting him off. What does that tell us? It tells us something. Found this clip interesting? Like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. See you guys tomorrow.